feel like you're the person other people can depend on, but can you even depend on yourself? So that's wow. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's Aliasian.
Tell them turn the television off.
In today's video, it's gonna be like a series long video. It's not like one day worth. We're gonna be doing shadow work. And for the people out here that don't know what shadow work is, I'm gonna go to the definition because I don't want to explain the wrong thing. But to me, shadow work is like, call it like your darker side, darker half, but it's more so addressing the negative aspects or experiences in your life and pinpointing them down so that you can move on from them, or to reverse, question mark. At least that's how I view it and how I see it. A good example. So it says shadow work is how you integrate the aspects of your unconscious psyche into your conscious experience and allow the positive aspects of the shadow to express themselves. When properly used and channeled, the shadow self has traits that you can use to further your own personal development. Boom. And that's why I'm doing this, because I'm all for self-growth. I'm all for self-help and self-growth. Goodness gracious. And just improving your life for the better for yourself, because you want to be better and not for anybody else, mainly for yourself and then for other people. And the better you are for yourself, the more you can be better for other people as well and help them get better, or use your positivity on them, so that, you know, that makes sense. It has to be making sense. But I decided to do shadow work because I know I have negative aspects, negative experiences, stuff that I need to grow, learn from, and pinpoint. So today we're gonna do I have shadow work journaling prompts. So that's what I'm gonna be doing throughout these days. And I decided to start off with the first day of February. It's Black History Month. But I have my own growth, and maybe you guys can have your own growth. We're gonna start, okay, on a blank page. I've only watched one person, YouTuber, do this before, and I actually want to give props to them because I saw them do it. I actually didn't finish the whole video because I fell asleep, but I did get through like the first two that they did, so I'm gonna like put my spin on it. But I was definitely inspired by this YouTuber. Her name is Trinity. I love watching her videos. Shout out Trinity. You know, maybe we can collab. I DM'd her on Instagram hoping that we could collab, but I'm not gonna talk about that. But we just talked about it. But anyways, so remember to be kind to yourself. This is not an exercise in bashing yourself. It is an exercise for self-awareness, so betterment can be found. Please practice self-care before and after journaling and try to find compassion and understanding for yourself. No matter what you find out about yourself, attempt radical self-love, finding self-love no matter what. Day one, here we go. So the first few questions for day one is, what emotion do you try to avoid? What makes you afraid to feel it? And why are you so, well, not why, but what are you afraid of will happen if you feel it? Wow. There are a lot of emotions that I try to avoid. Pretty sure some people that's watching has emotions that you guys try to avoid. Ouch. Afraid to feel happiness. Like when other people give it to me, I'm afraid to be too overly excited because I feel like I might be too dramatic or too much for somebody else. Like, you know how sometimes people are like too excited or like too hyper, too dramatic. Everybody's like, oh my gosh, I hate being around so and so because they're so, you know, overly expressive. So I'm afraid to be overly expressive. I'm also afraid to be too passionate because I'm afraid that if I'm too passionate, it ties into the second question. So I'm gonna just, you know, any emotion that shows too much passion is something I'm afraid to, you know, I try to avoid. And I also try to avoid the feeling of emptiness. I don't know the emotion for that, but I try to avoid emptiness. And the next question is, what makes you afraid to feel it? And that's what I was saying, it ties in. And the main reason why it's not more so for myself, but more so because of what I feel like other people will think or how they will react. They'll say, you know, stuff like that, is why I'm afraid to feel these emotions. Because I've seen other people be judged because of their own emotions that they don't avoid, and it makes me afraid to experience those emotions and feel them. So, societal things. Well, I'm afraid to feel empty because I'm afraid to feel useless. And if I feel useless, I feel like I have no worth. So sometimes when I do feel empty, I try to avoid that emptiness feeling. And the next question is, what makes you afraid? What are you afraid of will happen if you feel it? So I'm afraid that if I feel empty, I'll get stuck in that cycle of emptiness, and then I'll never get out of it. Or if I do get out of it, it's gonna be hard, and it's not the kind of battle cycle that I want to be in. But I feel like if I'm just happy, like overly excited, that it'll just be too much, if that makes sense. I already knew that, like, I have cared too much what people think, and it just really sucks that when I do these kind of things, I realize that, like, that's mainly my problem, is caring what other people think. And then, I don't know, it's crazy. Shadow work day 2. Honestly about to just like head into bed, because I got work in the morning, and I was completely forgot about the fact that I needed to do shadow work today. So I'm really glad I remembered, because I was definitely about to start binging Alice in Borderland, and I was just about to clock out. So I'm glad I remembered. So we are on day 2, dose. So let's get into it. I'm gonna write the questions down, write down my answers, and discuss. And the results are in. I have my answers. So for the privilege part, I wrote like a big paragraph explaining the 2 answers I gave. And then for the what do I take for granted, I just kind of kept that part simple, because I could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I put I am privileged because of certain things that I'm able to afford that some other people can't. Like, that's something that to me is like a privilege, because some people don't have the privilege to be able to afford the kind of things that are like luxury. Like, I don't have anything extremely luxury, but there's some things that are over $100 that some people can't afford. Like, they simply can't. Like, they have other priorities and needs, and it's a privilege to be able to get what you want rather than what you need, because a lot of people out here on a daily basis are living on a need basis, and to live on a need and want basis is a privilege to me. And I don't know if other people realize, but I mean, I don't know, I feel like that's a privilege that some people have. So yeah, I just put like being able to afford stuff that some people can't have, or they would like just die to have. Like, some people would probably die to have 4 pillows on their bed. Like, that's a privilege. Like, having a bed and 1 pillow is a privilege as is, but not everybody gets to have a, you know, that's a privilege to me in a way, if I'm making sense. I also put yeah, the bed. Or okay, another privilege to me is being able to sleep alone, because some people out here, they have to share a bed with their family members, like their mom or dad, or like siblings, grandparents, cousins. Some people don't have a privilege of like even having their own room. Like, they might have a room with like 2 beds with like 7 people, trying to, you know, divide them into 2 beds. That enough having 1 bed that I get to sleep in alone, a bed, I mean a room that I get to sleep in alone is a privilege. Yeah, so that's a privilege, and I feel like being able to style myself is like a privilege, because some people, they have 3 pair of jeans, 3 pair of shirts, and that's what they have because that's what they have, no other choice. And the fact that I'm able to go out and online shopping is a privilege. Not everybody can online shop. Not everybody, you know, has a means of being able to get stuff shipped to their house. So that alone is a privilege to me. I mean, maybe y'all don't see it as a privilege, but I feel like it is. So, like I said, taking stuff for granted, the list can go on and on. But the main things I put is just like, sometimes you take family for granted, like your support system, your friends, family. Sometimes you take them for granted and you don't realize how blessed you are to have them in your life until they're gone or until they're no longer in your life. And then I also put my health, because like with the way COVID is, like, I don't know, like lately I have realized, like, you know, I don't really take my health for granted as much, but sometimes I really have to sit and reflect and like, wow, I don't have to spend every few weeks or months in the hospital because of health reasons that I'm born with. Like, I'm okay, I'm content, like, you know, my body is not rejecting certain things that other people's bodies reject. Last thing I put that I definitely take for granted that I don't realize is my lifestyle. Like the kind of lifestyle I live, some people probably would love to have that lifestyle, and here I am sitting here in my lifestyle not being content because I see other influencers or entertainers, like, you know, people with big followings, and I'm like, wow, I want, well, not big followings, because like sometimes like more followers and more engagement equals more money, you know, so you're able to afford more wants and needs, and like I want that lifestyle in a way. So I take my own lifestyle for granted, because it's like the lifestyle I live isn't terrible. It's not the best, it's not the worst, but it's something to be content with at the moment, and that's definitely something I take for granted, like all the time. I'm like, man, I need to do better, I need to do this, I need to do that, like boom, boom, boom. And that's just something I take for granted. That definitely stood out the most to me was probably arrogant. Arrogant. There's no R in arrogant. Well, there's no R after the G. Anyways, if somebody was to use, like if somebody was to say, oh, well, like describe her to me, and they would say, oh, she's arrogant, that would trigger me. And I know the reason why, the way I feel like that, I would feel like it would trigger me because I feel like it's an inaccurate statement about myself. Because I feel like I try to not be arrogant because I don't like arrogant people. I don't like being around them. I don't like their energy. So if somebody was to describe me as arrogant, I would be like, what? Like, what aspect, what feature, what did I do to make you feel as if I'm an arrogant person? So it's the inaccuracy about that adjective that would bother me. And the question that says, what would be bad about it being true? Well, the fact that, one, I don't like arrogant people, and two, arrogant people are normally very, like, you know, selfish. They're just kind of disrespectful. Their vibe is just nasty. Like, that just sounds like a terrible way to describe it, but like, they don't think about the feelings and thoughts of other people. It's just like, oh, I feel this way, I want to do this, I'm gonna do that. Like, they don't take in consideration of other people's feelings and thoughts. They just literally care about their self, and that's it. Whatever they care about is what has to go, you know. Pretty sure we've all ran across an arrogant person. I'm pretty sure everybody can name one arrogant person in their life. So a positive aspect of being arrogant is that you're not pushover. An arrogant person isn't going to let somebody push them over, you know? They're probably going to be doing the pushovering, if anything. So I feel like that is a positive aspect. Well, a positive aspect. You know, as an arrogant person, in a way you probably know yourself, you know your wants and needs, and in a way you're going to go get them, you know? So there's some positive aspects, you know? You're not going to let anybody stop you or stand in your way, because the only person that would be in your way per se is like your own ego, if you're an arrogant person. I don't know, that's kind of how I perceive it. So I could go on and on, but we have numerous days, so I gotta like cut it down. I could really go on and on. Like, there's so many different things from this list that I would be very triggered by if somebody used to describe me. But there's also some stuff on here that's true. Like, I see codependent, paranoid, I see like insecure. Those are all things that somebody could describe me as, and I couldn't be triggered because it is the truth at times. Like, I'm not as insecure as I used to be, but if somebody was to describe me as insecure at some point in life, they wouldn't technically be wrong. And codependent as well. Like, I'm growing out of my codependency, but if somebody was to be like, yeah, she's codependent, I couldn't be mad because they're telling the truth. There was a lot of people that I depended on way too much. And same for, what was the other one that I saw here? Oh, paranoid. Like, yeah, I overthink. And my overthinking kind of leads into like a paranoia. You know, you could describe me as paranoid, and they wouldn't be completely right, but they wouldn't be completely wrong, because I'm always down to like try something new, etc. But there is like a paranoia in my head, like, oh my gosh, what if this happens, what if that happens, what if, you know, stuff like that. I just get really paranoid. The question is, what is the biggest promise you have made to yourself that you've broken, and how does that make you feel? So that's what we have today. And I feel like the biggest promise that I have made to myself that I have broken is to express myself more, not physically, but more like how I feel in here, and actually express it out. Because a lot of times things will bother me, and then like every few weeks or so I'll say, oh, I'll express how I feel to this person, or like about this situation. And sometimes I don't always do that. Like, I'll say I'll do it, or I'll say I'll handle it a certain way, and I just won't, because I'm too afraid to. Like, I'm afraid to express myself and say how I feel. So that's a promise that I have broken to myself time and time again. Also, like, putting myself first compared to certain people, relationships, friendships, etc. I'll say, oh, I'll put myself first, or I won't compromise in this situation, etc., etc. And time again, I find myself doing what I say I wouldn't do. Not more so promising, but just things that I didn't hold myself accountable for. And it just makes me feel disappointed in myself for the fact that, like, I can't stay true to my own word to myself. Like, when it's to other people and I promise a person I'm gonna do so and so or such and such, I definitely do it, I follow through. But when it comes to promising things to myself, I'm more reluctant compared to if it's for another person. I try not to let them down, but I feel I let myself down. And to me, it's like, wow. Like, you're the person other people can depend on, but can you even depend on yourself? So that's wow. That's wow. So yeah, it makes me feel a whole bunch of different ways, but I don't know. Kind of shocked by that. Not surprised, but like, wow. 5, and y'all already know what we're here for, what we're doing. No introduction needed. What do I lie to myself about? Probably for the longest, I lied to myself about thinking that I didn't have insecurities. Like, I knew I had them, but in the back of my head, I would try to like pretend like they didn't exist. Like, oh, you know, I'm confident in myself, blah, 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 blah. But like, deep down, I was insecure, and I knew that, but I kind of like sugar-coated it or lied to myself about it. Another thing I lie to myself about, I guess I lie to myself about not being bothered. I don't know, because normally I don't really sugarcoat. Like, if I know I feel away, I feel away, but sometimes I try to push it away rather than confront it. So I don't know. I can't think about something that I lie to myself on a daily. But the other question is what are you trying to avoid? And I guess certain situations, certain negative energy, certain people. Like, I know that there's definitely some people out that I'm trying to avoid for the sake of myself. I try to avoid situations, I try to avoid certain people at times. But I do always like a challenge. Like, normally when situations or things go wrong, I would stray away. But lately I have been loving the challenge of not pushing things to the back burner, essentially. So I guess I'm really not trying to avoid anything. I'm trying to just fight the battles, I guess, or what's the word I'm trying to use when like step over them? Conquer. I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to conquer, English word. Yeah, you guys know what I'm saying. If not, help me in the comments. You guys know. But yeah, it's not much that I try to avoid except for what I literally said, like negative energy. And I don't really see anything wrong essentially with avoiding negative energy because it's really draining. Bad vibes, you know. That's simple. I guess stuff from like years ago that still bother me from like forever ago, I try to avoid that, like the feelings or like the resentment I would have from like forever ago. Those are things that I try to avoid and like progress from, but I definitely avoid it, and I allow myself not to feel it essentially. Yeah. Y'all already know why we're here and what we're doing. This is day 6, February 6th, 2021. And the question is, what do you think is your worst trait? Why is it bad? What positive aspects does this trait bring with it? So, right off the top of the bat of my head. Right off the top of the bat. I'm tired. One of those. First things first, I thought of overgiving. Like, it's not necessarily my worst trait, but it's bad because I overgive too much to some people that don't deserve it, and in the end, I'm the one that's hurt, so it's the worst trait for myself, not for others. But the positive aspect of that is that it shows that I'm a selfless person, so I kind of put others before myself, which can be a positive thing at times for other people and sometimes for myself. But I think one of the worst traits besides that would be overthinking. That's a trait that I have. I overthink every little minor detail from the past to the present to the future, and it's a terrible trait because it affects me like mentally and emotionally, and I guess physically it can make you a little tired as well. But it's bad because sometimes I can't enjoy things in the moment because I'm overthinking about the future or the past, about things that I've said or done or what I will do in the future, and I just overthink about it, and it's a bad thing because it takes away your focus from what you really need to be worried about, like in the present moment, like what's to come now rather than then. But that's why it's bad. The only positive thing about it is that it can kind of guide you in a way. Like if you overthink about a situation too much, then you might realize, okay, maybe this isn't for me. So I guess that's the positive aspect. Sometimes you can overthink your way out of a bad situation, you know. Sometimes you can't just react, and sometimes you do have to think about it. So that's the positive aspect, is that, you know, it's not always something bad. I mean, it is bad, but sometimes it works out in my favor or in anyone's favor. Day 7. If I truly love myself, my life would be, I guess, more content than I currently am with life. And I feel like it would look like. So it would look a lot more content, a little more extravagant. And yes, it is different than to how it currently is, because I would want to be able to be self-sustainable and afford stuff on my own, for my own, and for others as well that deserve it. So it is different than how I would like it to look, but if you remain positive, eventually you will reach